Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I hope you can hear me a little better. I've got a new microphone on, so I will try and speak loudly. And for anyone that finds it too loud, please turn it down. But I've had a lot of complaints about my audio being very low. So hopefully I've made a few changes, and that should make a difference. So tonight we have the third encounter from Christian and Patch. The encounters at Paul seemed to be intensifying, as if this thing was testing us, seeing how far it could go. This particular night we had lots of snow in Hull and the Paul area. By the time we got to our spot down Newlands Lane, the snow was a couple of inches deep at least, but it had not stopped. My memory is hazy, but I believe it was either late '02 or early '03. Our routine and sightings of it had taken over the pool games. Now we didn't go out for pool as much, but more to experience this, whatever it was. Driving down the lane, turning round, and then pulling over into the passing place on the left had become routine, although the snowbound road and countryside gave a different dimension to things this night. The most obvious thing being, everything was much brighter. It was cold and very quiet as I let Patch out of the back of the boot. We sat in the car, windows half down, having our smokes, talking in low voices, watching the bend in the road ahead carefully, ears pricked for any noise. Nothing. There was no unusual activity. We remarked on how quiet it was, both in nature and the thing. There was no sound at all. The night was so still. I remember my window was open and I was smoking. I was on my second cigarette by then everything changed in a second. It all happened very quickly, in what felt like milliseconds. I remember hearing a noise near the back of the car, faint at first, but getting louder quickly. I was aware of Rob in the rear passenger side, leaning out of his open window to investigate what the noise was. As I realised what the noise was, the car suddenly erupted in noise, very loud noise of shouting, screaming, swearing, sheer panic. A loud bang sounded from the rear of the car. I had automatically reached for the ignition and had started the engine. Out of pandemonium, I made out a few words: go, go, go. It's an odd sensation. You want to get out of there quickly. You know something horrible is happening, but you know if you floor the accelerator, which is every instinct is screaming at you to do, you're going nowhere. At the time, I had an old Volvo 340, which is rear wheel drive, not the best vehicle on snowbound road. So I had to gently accelerate, even being careful. The rear wheels just spun on the slippery road at first, and all the time I was being shouted at, swore at, screamed at, and I quote, "Get that out of here." Slowly, painfully slowly, the car started to move forward. As soon as it did, I slipped it into second gear and put more revs on, as much as I dared. We were moving now at a fair rate. I brought the car up to 30 miles an hour, a crazy speed on that road, but it still seemed way too slow. We cleared the first bend, and against great protest from my passengers, pulled over, roughly a quarter of a mile away, at another passing place. It was only now I realised in the back. Oh, Rob was in the back, sprawled across the back seat, holding his head. Had he been attacked? No. Apparently he'd banged his head hard on the door frame in panic, trying to get his head back in the car after what he'd seen. That was what the long, loud bang was I'd heard. He was okay, just a slight cut to the back of his head. I hadn't seen anything, but I did hear it. What I'd heard a second before the panic is footfalls in the snow, that crunching sound snow makes when you walk on it. John and Rob were scared, but also excited. They kept saying, "Did you see it?" over and over. And what was that? I was scared too, but I hadn't seen what they had. John had seen it initially by looking out of his passenger window, then through the wing mirror. Rob had been the closest and saw the whole thing, with his head hung right out of the rear door. What had they seen? This is going to sound insane, but I believed them. I've never seen anyone that scared in my life, even to this day. Rob and John's descriptions were the same. Rob said he heard something approaching the rear of the car, like I had. He'd stuck his head out of the window and looked back and seen footprints appearing in the snow. No feet, or legs, or body, just footprints coming towards the back of the car. He even described the snow flicking off non-existent feet. John's description was the same. It was unbelievable, but yet I'd just experienced it. I was a lot of things at once, scared, excited, stressed, but at the same time curious. I really had to know. Again, amidst protest, I slowly, carefully turned that car around and headed back to where we'd been parked. At once, as I drove back, you could see in the headlamps footprints in the snow. They led into the field beside the car, about 15 or 20 yards from where we'd been parked. Clearly, whilst we were talking about what we'd seen and heard, it had been following us. It had almost got right up to the car. We followed the prints slowly this time, with the windows up and the doors locked. Returning to the original parking spot, we noticed that the prints went right past where the car had been parked. When we set off, it would have been up against the passenger side. We kept on following the prints now, clearly standing out in the virgin snow. They ended, or rather began, in the middle of the road, about 100 and 150 yards from the original parking place. I turned around once more, and the rest I will bring you tomorrow. No, I really feel for these witnesses. Where would you go if you experienced this? Who would you tell? It is often the case when you're there and there's more than one witness that it's never spoken about again, and you distance yourself from each other as if this will lessen the impact in some way, or at least have the out of sight, out of mind effect. You ask yourself over and over, did I really see that? Was it really there? What ifs abound, and you drive yourself ragged trying to work it all out. Sometimes just knowing you're in a small minority of others who have also seen something impossible, but it was there nonetheless, helps you come to terms with the encounter and move forward with your journey. Once you accept it's happened and come to terms with it all, it does start to make sense and become less of a scary event and more of an interest in what else you can learn about these beings, shall we say. There are other accounts of invisible figures in the UK. In fact, there's quite a lot of them, in all honesty. Check out the Colwick reports. There's reports of heavy breathers, footprints appearing or being heard behind people. It's quite a common occurrence. And as I promised, tomorrow I will bring you the update. And Numanu's back, so I have an update for you from Numanu. It's incredibly exciting. Things happened during the night, but I'll bring you that tomorrow when I've had time to process it all and think it through. So until then, good night.